This is the Logitech MX Master 3S for Mac, and if you're watching this video, you're probably scouring YouTube for reviews and other videos trying to understand if this thing is actually any good or if it's any better than Apple's own Magic Mouse. I know that's what I did. I must have spent countless hours going through hundreds of YouTube videos trying to answer those very questions. Well, in the end, about 6 months ago, I decided to take the plunge on this thing. And after actually using it for a good length of time, there's definitely a few nuances to how this thing works that I don't think either other people didn't mention in their videos, or maybe I didn't either acknowledge or appreciate some of the differences that were mentioned. So in this video, I'm just going to cover off the things that really stood out to me. Hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have decided whether or not you actually want to pull the trigger and buy one of these things, or whether or not you might just want to stick with this Magic Mouse, or maybe a different one entirely. If you do want to pull the trigger on this, there will be a link in the description. That is an Amazon link, but of course you can buy it pretty much anywhere. But with that out of the way, let's get into it. Now the first point, and I'm aware that everyone else talks about this as well, but it's probably the biggest reason why you might be eyeing this thing up, especially if you've been using this thing, and that is its ergonomic design. Yes, this thing slides into the palm of your hand and does have all the curves in all the right places. But if you've been using the Apple Magic Mouse for any period of time, you've probably learned to use this thing with a claw grip. Now what this means is the claw grip that I learned to use with the Magic Mouse, and yes, I do have big hands, but that grip that I learned to use with this has now translated over to Logitech's own mouse. Yes, I do have big hands, so my hand just completely swallows up this mouse. If you actually look on their website, I don't know how big those people are or small those people are, but this mouse looks huge. For me, it's kind of not. It definitely is. It fits in the palm of my hand, as you can see, and it does back up into that palm very nice and comfy. But like I say, the claw grip that I have developed and learnt to use with the Magic Mouse is the same grip that I use with the Logitech mouse. And weirdly enough, when I actually compare my grip on both mice, I'm basically holding it in the exact same way. The only slight difference is because the Logitech is a little bit taller, significantly taller than Apple's mouse, is it hits or kisses the palm of my hand a bit more. So it is technically a bit more comfortable. However, I am literally touching only one, two, I've got 4 points of contact as I'm looking at my hand holding it now. Well, 2 actually, 3. What? Can't count. 3 points of contact. 2 fingers for clicking, 3 fingers for gripping. So I'm not getting that palm grip or that relaxed grip where my hand can just rest on the top of my mouse just like it can in the images. And the other thing as well is the footprint of these 2 mice is actually very similar. So if I use the extremely scientific way of putting my hand on the mouse and trying to hold that position and then slotting it in, it's basically the same. Super scientific. And I say the same footprint, I am aware there's the extra thumb bit, but if you actually look at the bits where my fingers and thumbs touch the sides, it's basically touching on the same position. So in regards to the ergonomics, your mileage will definitely vary based on your hand size, but if it is purely the ergonomics you're expecting and you've developed that claw grip like I did, or if you were suffering from any sort of wrist pain from the claw grip, for me, this hasn't actually changed my hand position. Maybe it has fractionally because I can slightly rest it on, but it's arguably no different. So if it is that you're looking for something because you're getting that really bad wrist pain, Logitech, I know, do a way more ergonomic mouse where the grip is almost vertical. I'll leave a link for that in the description as well to check that out. A friend of mine actually uses that and he says it's literally your wrist is vertical. So it is super ergonomic, not quite the same functionality as this mouse, but pretty similar. So if it is the ergonomics you are really looking for, definitely check that out. Now, once you've connected your Logitech MX Master 3S for Mac via Bluetooth with no dongle as well, by the way, there's a version with a USB dongle. I think the 3S is the one that doesn't have the dongle, because why would you need one? The thing that surprised me the most and really stuck out the most when I got this thing and started using it, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it in the first place. I was moving my mouse around. This thing was flying all over the place. I think it's how the mouse handles the sensitivity. It's very subtle, but it is a difference, and it's something I'm pretty sure that or at least I never found anyone else that made it clear. And like I say, I may have glossed over it or may have just been a passing comment, but this is something that stood out to me and still now is something that I deal with. I've come to terms with it, but it is a really interesting difference. And just for context, my trackpad, what I've got on the screen there, my trackpad sensitivity and my mouse sensitivity for the mouse, Magic Mouse, is max, to the max. Highest speed. I want to save as much time moving from one corner to the other as possible on the screen. So that's a little productivity hack there. Jack that sensitivity up and you're sliding all over the place. But when I connected the Logitech to my Mac, I'm flying all over the place. I'm overshooting. I can barely click on anything. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I realized after literally connecting them both up and moving them both at the same time, just trying to figure out what on earth is going on, the Apple Magic Mouse responsiveness, sensitivity, whatever you want to call it, is not linear. It accelerates, if that makes sense. So depending on how fast you move the mouse, the Apple Magic Mouse, determines how fast it will move across the screen, which kind of makes sense, but it's only when you realize that the Logitech mouse is linear. It just means that when you're moving the mouse, the Apple mouse, when you're trying to make smaller, finer adjustments, you know, it actually makes that a lot easier because it's not flying all over the place, so you're not having to be dead precise with your hand. Whereas with the Logitech, you can move around consistently much quicker, but maybe for those finer movements, you actually need to be a bit more accurate with your hand. Maybe I've just got lazy with my wrist and I'm just trying to slovenly move around on the screen with my mouse. I don't know. It's just different. It's neither better or worse. They definitely have their pros and cons depending on the type of work you might do or anything like that. And of course you can adjust the sensitivity as well. The Logitech goes up to like 8,000 DPI or something, so I don't know why you'd want that, but it's there if you want to toggle it on. At the end of the day, if you've not been using one of these either, you've just had a different USB mouse, maybe an old one from an old PC or whatever it might be, pretty sure that it's already going to be moving in that linear fashion anyway, so you might not even have noticed the difference. I just noticed the difference coming from an Apple Magic Mouse to the Logitech mouse. When it comes to navigating around on your Mac, the thing that makes this Magic Mouse so magic is its gesture control. So it's very much using this surface on the mouse, very similar to using the trackpad on your MacBook if you've got one of those. So you can swipe, scroll, and all those cool gestures. When it comes to the Logitech, those implementations are a little bit less graceful. The scrolling is a lot more jerky visually to look at because it's scrolling a few lines at a time when you're scrolling it. It's also got a horizontal scroll wheel as well, so 2 separate wheels for those actions. And then it's got an additional button for those additional gestures, just in the spot where your thumb rests. Now the vertical scroll wheel does have a button to activate and deactivate the clicky rigidness of the wheel. So when it's on, you can feel sort of the bumps of the scroll wheel. I thought that when you turned that off, because then it just spins freely, that would translate to natural scroll on the Mac. Sadly, that isn't the case. It just removes that more tactile feel on the scroll, which in my opinion, I personally don't like, because this thing's like it's like a magnetic, it scrolls incredibly fast when you disable that button, but it means that it's really easy to nudge with your finger. So I always keep that on. But the cool thing about it is actually that even though when you turn that on, you still maintain the ability, if you want to flick the wheel and it will scroll as if that tactile option wasn't turned on in the first place, and then it will slowly come to a stop. So it allows you to flick the page and scroll like you would with the Magic Mouse. It just lacks that natural scroll visibly on screen. As to which is better, of course, Apple's Magic Mouse feels much smoother. It's got that natural scroll. It's the same as if you were swiping on an iPad or your trackpad. So it feels smoother on screen. There's also many less buttons on the Apple mouse compared to the Logitech. So they're just different. I think once you've spent any time with either of them, you get used to them, you know, whether there's more buttons or less buttons. Ultimately, they do basically the same amount of actions, probably a few more with this actually, which we'll come on to in a minute. But realistically, they both achieve the same thing. They both scroll horizontally, vertically. It just, of course, Apple's product just has that little bit of Apple magic that they don't like to share with others. And like I say, that flick and grab technique that I do, and you probably do on your phone even with the scrolling, you can still do that with this wheel anyway, because it has that mag roll, whatever they call it. Even when that button is activated, you can just flick and spin, flick and spin. So again, personal preference, you get used to either of them. And finally, just to round off this video with just a few quick fire bullet points just on this worth mentioning. Number one, battery life on this lasts ages. Number two, if you do need to charge this thing, you can via USB-C, and you can still use it if you need to. Although I actually don't like it because it snags on it while it's being on charge. You got the cable dragging around trying to use this wirelessly. And just like with the Apple mouse, even though you literally cannot use that by charging it underneath, by the time you've plugged this in, made yourself a cup of tea, come back up, 5 minutes later, this thing's got like a few more days in it, just like the Apple mouse has as well. Batteries on both of these things last so long, and they charge so quick, even just as a quick top up, you barely notice it. I literally cannot remember the last time I charged this thing. So the battery life in it is fantastic. Number three, an interesting thing when I've used this Logitech mouse, now I don't know if it does this with other mice other than the Apple mouse either, but when I'm using this and it's connected, Finder has this weird thing where it gains like a bar that allows you to resize columns in the Finder window. It's not good, it's not bad. I don't know why it's not always there. But yeah, it just impacts the Finder windows in a way that makes it have a little less space, but makes it more flexible. Very bizarre, don't know why it does it, but it's just something that I thought was interesting. Number four is customizable buttons. You fire up the Logitech Plus app, whatever it's called, the Connect app, and you can pretty much customize the buttons on here, most of these buttons, to do pretty much anything that you want. The only things is like you can't change the scroll, I don't believe. But not only can you customize the buttons to do specific actions, you can make them do specific actions in specific programs. So for example, in Final Cut, you can have the back and forwards buttons to do trims, but on a Zoom call, those same buttons can control the microphone and camera inputs. So you can quickly, at a push of a button, mute yourself, unmute, or turn your camera off and things like that. And then even in Photoshop, for example, you could have that to change the size of your brush. And finally, number five, bit of an odd one with this, and I don't know if it's a software thing, firmware, I don't know what it is, but all of those great gesture controls that it does have, which are great, sometimes it just doesn't work. I honestly do not know why. Like, I'll be swiping in and out of things, I'll be in Final Cut on full screen, swiping over, swiping back, everything works fine. Then one day I'll be using it and I'll be in a program, and then I'll try and swipe over from one page to another, and it just doesn't do it. I'll press it, it doesn't do it. Then I'll click over to my desktop and then it will do it, and it is responsive. So I don't know if there's a clash there with the software of the app that I'm using to the mouse. It doesn't do it all the time. It's super inconsistent when that problem occurs. So it's really not that big of a deal, but just something that I did notice that it just occurs from time to time. So that's just some of my thoughts on the MX Master 3S by Logitech. There's definitely some differences between this and Apple's own Magic Mouse. A lot of nuances, but you get used to them. This is now actually my primary mouse, so I've been using this well over 6 months now. I really enjoy it. I really like it. You get used to all the buttons, the customization, which I'm still now just like refining on different software. That's fantastic. The natural scroll is definitely something that you miss because sometimes it seems to jump on those lines. We won't dwell on that. But again, it's just scrolling. You can still do the flick and scroll, which I enjoy. You could take the rough with the smooth, quite literally, but I actually do think this is a fantastic mouse. Let me know in the comments what you think about this mouse. Have you got yourself one of these? Are you still eyeing it up? Have you gone with something else? Are you still clawing it with Apple's Magic Mouse? Let me know in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video or if it's been helpful, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you do have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer those in the comments as well. If you are looking to make a purchase on one of these, there is a link in the description, and that's it. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the next video. What will it be? Will it be more tech? Will it be more shoes? Probably more shoes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again very soon.